it was just beautiful powder and jagged peaks. And I remember sitting there in my mind, I was like, I need to be out there. Like, that's what I need to be doing. And it's not always easy. That's why you got to continually be checking in and working on yourself on an intrinsic level. We have that opportunity to for so long. Well, only so long. We have our lifespan, and you never know how long it's going to be for each person. So capitalize on it.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Athletic Stance podcast. On this episode, we have a very special individual, someone that I have had the privilege of skiing with, and this conversation really meant a lot to me. We broke it up into 3 parts, and we talked about overlapping subjects through each of them, but I thought that it was best to break it up into 3 parts. First, let's introduce Amy. Amy is a professional skier and outdoor adventure athlete. During the summer months, she guides wilderness backpacking trips for Sawtooth Mountain Guides and is a retreat director and lead guide for And She's Dope Too, a worldwide women's collective. She is the owner and founder of Action Inspired Productions, curating multimedia content as the writer, producer, and on-camera talent, telling inspiring stories, connecting people and the planet. Her work has been featured on Outside TV, Discovery Channel, TetonGravity.com, Outside Magazine, Universal Sports TV, and many other reputable sources. She grew up in rural Pinedale, Wyoming, in the foothills of the Wind River Range, where her passion for outdoor adventure was innate. We talk about this in the podcast. Skiing has fueled her Wild West thirst for adrenaline and passion for Mother Nature. She has been skiing for 26 years and currently travels the world skiing in front of the camera and utilizing her snowmobile to pursue remote backcountry adventures. Amy is one of the youngest researchers to present at the International Snow Science Workshop with original science research on glacial recession and particulate matter. Go check out that peer-reviewed published paper. Just got to go to her website and go to her About Me, which is what I'm reading right now. In 2009, Amy won the title Miss Wyoming Teen USA, which kickstarted her media career, combining aspirations in the outdoor and entertainment industries. She formerly worked in public relations at Mountain Sports International, MSI, as we call it in the episode, for outdoor action sports events and as the on-camera field announcer for the Free Skiing World Tour. In 2015, she transitioned to competing as a pro skier on the Free Skiing World Tour and placed 3rd in her first competition in Verbier, Switzerland. With a BA in Psychology of Communication and a minor in the Outdoor Education and Leadership from Westminster College, Amy has applied her degree beyond skiing to produce inspiring content for companies in the outdoor industry, in addition to hosting women's clinics and guiding wilderness trips. How does she do it all? She is an amazing athlete. I absolutely loved this conversation with her. I hope that we get to do more together. For this first episode, we talk a lot about a lot of the things that I just mentioned, like her backstory, health, entrepreneurialism, and how she has not only turned skiing into a passion that she gets to pursue, but also a business of telling stories and communicating and combining her whole life experience into a body of work. So without further ado, let's jump right into this podcast episode with Amy Jane David.
You started to talk a little bit about snow and the snow being around. So, talking about climate change and the social condition in ski communities. And we've kind of had this discussion about carbon footprint. I was watching Angel Collinson did a live on Instagram last night about how she hasn't said much about the about voting because she feels hypocritical for living the life that she does in some ways because of her carbon footprint. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I think climate change is one of the most important issues of our generation. And a lot of skiers would say it's the most important. I think that creating community for humans is maybe slightly more because we have this disconnect psychologically, but it all comes down to this idea. If we learn how to take care of ourselves and the environment around us, then things will be better for future generations. And just kind of like talk about that and like your understanding of it. And it is kind of one of those places where you can have two thought processes that fight each other. And so it's like, what are you doing? And you're passionate about it. And what does that all mean to you?
It's such a complex issue. Like there's so many different components that go into it. But I just want to say how much I admire Angel for, like, she's just always so open and transparent and honest about her feelings. And I think that is super admirable because it translates and it connects with people. And they're like, oh, like she's on the same, like she gets it. She's not up on some like high horse preaching, like you should do this and that. And why aren't you doing this? Like, all right, like we're all in this together. Like we need to work together and figure it out. So I admire her for sharing her thoughts that way. And I guess I'm similar in the sense that we all know that climate change is one of the most pressing issues that our world is facing right now and will be for a very long time. And if we had a little bit more forethought, could have hopefully prevented some of these issues. But it's hard. Like humans have taken over the planet, where Mother Nature would be just fine on her own. Like Mother Nature works in perfect harmony with herself. There was some podcast I was listening to a while ago that was talking about how the earth and nature is like, well, the cities are like scabs, like your skin, how it heals itself. And it's like a scab. And so you remove like the human parts that we've all created and the earth would heal itself. It's still resilient, but only to a certain degree, or it's maybe the humans that might not survive if something, catastrophic were to happen. But I think we've pushed it. Well, science has proven that we've pushed it too far. And it's unfortunate that it is human created. So hopefully we can solve it as humans, or at least start to do some preventative maintenance. I got started being interested in environmental activism in a sense through my mom. My dad too. They're both really educated about the environment. My mom is a science teacher, and so she taught us all about river ecology and snow science and the environment as an overall whole, and just instilled this curiosity of how things work. And so as a kid, I've just always been fascinated with all of that and did science fairs as a kid. And so in high school, I studied with my friend Jane. We did a research project on the effects of particulate matter on the melt rate of snow and ice. So essentially that's, glacial recession when you put it onto a big scale in perspective. And so we were mainly focused on how the particulate matter, the dust from dirt roads from the oil and gas industry. So they're paved now, but where I grew up in Pinedale, Wyoming, there was a huge boom in oil and gas. And so like that in itself is a whole nother like element to the environment and the challenge. But what I was most interested in was all of the roads that they needed to do to get to the different drilling rigs. And so all of that dust plumes up, it travels, it lands on the snow surfaces and glaciers, far away once it gets up into the atmosphere and travels all over the world. But essentially that darker color, super simple. It just decreases the reflectivity, the albedo, and then that, allows more heat waves, or the sun rays to generate heat, melts the snow, and there's a whole cycle, and it's just, like I said, so complex. There's so many different elements that add to that. But yeah, so that passion of science and trying to see the bigger picture of glaciers receding, especially, that's the easiest visual, I think, for the general public, is if you've seen the documentary Chasing Ice.
I haven't. I'll watch that. I haven't seen it.
I highly recommend it. What I loved about that, and it was super inspiring to me, and hopefully I'd like to follow a path like that as I continue on. This guy actually used just photography to simply show the way that the glaciers were receding. So I think a lot of times when you throw scientific numbers and stats out at the general public, it's hard to comprehend. And they're like, okay, like I see the numbers, but what is it? What's the point? And they keep going on with their day-to-day lives. We're all guilty of it. All of us are. We all contribute to climate change on a certain degree. But what I loved about Chasing Ice is that he used photos, and he took a photo like every 24 hours for, I think it was over a course of a year or a couple years. And it showed the time lapse of the glaciers receding and calving off. And so when you see that, like it's undeniable. Like it's literally just pulling back, the size of Manhattan is just calving off of this glacier. And so I think visual storytelling is a great way to educate the general public. And then you tie in a little bit of the science with it, because it is factual, it's proven. And so that really solidifies what you're seeing, and it helps people realize like this is a real issue, and now what are we going to do about it? So, I hope to contribute to that, where I know in the last few years it's been on my mind I keep talking about like the why, like what's your purpose? That's what I'd like to do, is start to add some activism and environmental facts into what I'm doing as far as a skier, because not many people can get to the places that a lot of us can that are into, say, mountaineering, where a lot of the scientists who are, top level researchers on these issues, and we need them to analyze and to, facilitate this whole research process. But as mountaineers, we can actually get to those places where we can help collect data. One of my other favorite podcasts I recently listened to was from the Alpinist magazine. It's called Mountaineers and Climate Change. And there's one little section that I just can't get over, and it's been stuck in my mind. And the person on the podcast was saying that it's irresponsible for us to go to these places or get to these summits and remote locations, say snap a picture, say I got there, and then go home. It's just irresponsible when we could be going there, at least documenting or collecting data. So hopefully I can partner with some researchers to actually start to contribute back to something like that.
Use that strength that you've cultivated, that expertise that you've cultivated in being able to be a mountaineer and being able to guide people to then create the team that can go out and do research, find the places to understand more about what's going on. I like that. Yeah.
I think that's where more of my strength is, versus like politics they're so challenging for me. And that's one thing I need to work on, is educating myself more on how that all works. We all went through school, like we know the gist of it, but it's hard. And like the whole voting thing, like, okay, I'm registered to vote, I'm going to go vote, but you got to do all of the research so you can, responsibly vote, not just go to the polls. That's important too. Educating yourself on the politics of it, because the laws that are in place do affect how the overall population, how we conduct our lives, and how that affects the environment as a whole. So I definitely accept that that's important.
Yep. I really struggle with politics, because politics, for me, it all seems like a Band-Aid. It doesn't seem like it actually addresses the root cause of anything. It all wants to direct and redirect and channel energy and money and people's opinions in different directions. But for me, and like I said, like I think that climate change is one of the most important issues that we're facing today, but perhaps maybe just a little bit more important is interpersonal relationship and being able to understand someone that you have a completely different opinion with, being able to understand their point of view and kind of taking that idea of sportsmanship that we talked about earlier and honoring the fact that, you know, they are a human, they're entitled to their opinion. And no matter how much I disagree with it, at the base level, I'm going to honor their humanity. And then from there, I'm going to try and understand why they think the way that they think. And then if we don't agree, I'm still going to revert back to this idea that they're human and that they deserve just as much love as I would want to be given from someone that disagrees with me. And I think that at the end of the day is what's most important for me is we have the divisiveness and the separation that's created by these teams and tribes. And we all want to feel accepted by the tribe because innately we want to, like, you know, our operating system of our brain is conditioned to be in a fight or flight state of mind. And it's also conditioned to want to have a team, because if we aren't valued by the tribe, then if we get sick, hurt, injured, whatever, then the tribe may let us die off. And that's like a really 3,000 years ago ideal, but it's still completely active in our DNA and in our brainstem, in our psychology. And I know you love psychology, so it's like, we want these teams and we want to feel accepted, but we can have, like, what's more important than having a team that is against other people is having the whole team human, at least able to honor the humanness in everyone else around us. Because if it gets down to that base level, then, you know, we can start to untangle these things.
Yeah. So there's lots of things, like so many different areas, like ag is one area, and then, you know, crops versus plant versus animals, and then, you know, cars. And the ski industry is super interesting too, which I don't have a ton of facts on this to share, but I've definitely been pondering it over the last year, especially since I got a snowmobile last year. Part of me was, maybe I'm just projecting this, where I'm thinking that other people are like, oh, she got a snowmobile, like that's a lot of carbon, you know, footprint, and she's like, you know, pumping fuel and through the mountains. And then I've thought about it a lot. I'm like, well, that's true, but we all drive cars. When you go to the ski area, you drive your car there, you know, you're riding the chairlift up, and that takes similar amount of, it's pumping out all of those emissions and bad stuff for the air. And I know it's snow blowing. The snow blowers are a tricky one. Like, all right, and we're pumping all this water out to create snow because we don't have enough snow. But then that's, you know, it's this vicious cycle of cause and effect, and then taking airplanes to other countries to go on ski trips. And it's hard because I love it and I do all of that stuff, you know, so I get where Angel was coming from, where she's like, I feel like a hypocrite because my lifestyle, how can I be promoting like this environmentalism when I'm contributing to it? But I remember your interview with Julian was really interesting also, with his point, where it is true, like we have to accept that, and we all need to work on solutions, actively working on solutions, but there isn't a solid one yet that we can go to. Yeah, I know that a lot of professional skiers have been hated on because they go heli skiing, but then they're out there saying that they're environmentalists. It's like, okay, they're still environmentalists. Like their message is important, and I'm sure they're doing things that are really helpful too. And yes, like the helicopters contribute in a certain way too. I don't know. It's tricky. It's interesting to think about that way. I don't know. It's hard. Like everybody drives cars, like even the people that are hating on, you know, say the skiers that are being environmentalists. Like, okay, did you drive your car to work today? Like,
right. So, did you buy food from the grocery store?
Exactly. It's like people that hate on hunters, but then they still buy food from the grocery store. And that's supporting a feedlot that's treating the animals so poorly and is pumping things into those animals' bodies that never should be put in there. It's just, so you're supporting that, but you're going to negatively talk about, say, someone who goes and respectfully kills an animal. So I just got on a rant there, but I think that it's important to accept like your contribution. Like, yes, I drive a truck, I drive a snowmobile, I burn firewood to heat my house, and that puts out negative particles into the atmosphere. But I'm also doing a lot of things to help the environment. And so it's good for people to take, a reality check and really think of ways to decrease the negative effect and increase your positive influence.
Yeah. And, accept the reality and not get, all I can is one of my favorite. It's one of the most amazing pieces of cinematography I've ever seen in my whole life. I absolutely love that movie. And, it's like, accept the reality and then do everything that you possibly can to figure out the solutions, and don't get paralyzed by the fact, like, it's so easy to think like, oh my gosh, we're doomed. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to continue on this path and like life will figure itself out. And like most likely, yeah, like you said, Mother Nature will figure itself out. And if it needs to, it'll wipe us out. Like if we can start to just accept where we are, and it's kind of like, when you're injured, you can't fight the fact that you're injured. You can't fight the fact that you can't go skiing. You have to accept it and then start making an applicable game plan on how you're going to recover. Mm-hmm. And I think like that's, like how do we do that? I'm tossing it around in my brain pretty much every day, because at the end of the day, now I really do want a bunch of eyes on me so that I can help the world, and so that I can be the best possible person that I can be, and have humanity be, a lot more, just honor each other more, and honor, like, to me, this is heaven. Like, heaven isn't some place in the sky. Heaven isn't some, like, it's not like there are different dimensions that there's different dimensions in the world. Like you look at a butterfly, and a butterfly can see wavelengths that we can never see, or a dog can smell things that we'll never be able to smell, or an eagle can see things in a way, or like a jellyfish experiences a whole different level of consciousness than we do. There's so many dimensions that our senses can't perceive, but for me, it's all heaven right here, right now. And being able to like start to think about it in that way, all of a sudden I get a lot more peaceful about it. And then I try to figure out like, okay, this is heaven, but like, we can make heaven better, right? And a lot of a lot of religious Christians, or people may have, because they've read the Bible in a certain way, they may feel like it is, that is not a truth, but that's how I feel about it. And I think it's our duty to honor the consciousness that we've been given and the environment that we've been given as well.
Mm-hmm. Humans I think we take over, and we think we get entitled and think that, humans run the world. Humans definitely taken over the world to a certain degree, but I think we got to pump the brakes and realize that, yeah, it's the earth and we have to take care of it versus like trample all over it.
Totally.
But yeah, humans are brilliant. Like, look what we've created. Some incredible things that who knew that could have even existed. Like, I still don't even get how like certain things on my cell phone work. It's like a little magic box, it's crazy. But if we're that brilliant to create that, so many things, I'm sure I have hope and faith that humans can also create a way to solve some of the challenges that we have. But then it is like the ego human factor that does cause destruction. Greed takes over. So yeah. I think you're right, where it's a balance of an environmental issue and a human issue of working together.
Love that, for sure. Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, a couple more questions and then we can just kind of wrap up. Okay. No, I've enjoyed this so much. It's so awesome to have people to relate to who have been through similar experiences, and knowing, we talked about, knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that other people have human experience, and just being.
what's one piece of advice you'd pass along to someone that wants to do what you do? Like, if there's a young woman that wanted to, whether it's like win a pageant or be a professional skier or have entrepreneurial ventures and get into PR or whatever it is, like, what's one piece of advice that you would pass along to?
Okay. I would say it sounds so simple, but thinking of like those different things that you just listed off, like the one thing that got me to be successful in each of those areas was to believe in yourself. Like, so simple, but it's so true. You have to believe in yourself first and believe that you're capable of it, because we're so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. We're so much smarter and physically competent. And so just believe in yourself is number one step. And then second is find a mentor, find somebody who's done it before that you look up to in that area and admire. And then that's how you can start to research of like, what are the steps I need to do to attain that goal? So I guess the formula would be, believe in yourself. 2 is like, have that dream. Like, what do you want to do? And then figure out the steps, set the goals of how to attain that. And then, like we were talking about before, take action and do it, and balance patience with persistence. And if it's truly something that you care about and that you want, I believe that you'll make it happen. If you keep trying, you just have to be resilient, and you might not get yes all of the time, but keep pursuing. One example, I was talking to somebody about how they were getting ski sponsors, and he said, well, I just got turned down. Like, I submitted my application and they said they aren't taking any more people at this time. I was like, well, didn't they give you an email? So they sent you an email back. It's like, look at that. That's great. Like, now you have you have the contact info, like, follow up and tell them, I really appreciate that, but this is where I think I could bring value. So you always want to be bringing value. It's not about what can I get? Like, who's going to give me this? Why do I deserve, to be at the top? Like, okay, that's great. But, why? Like, what value are you bringing? So believe in yourself, figure out how to make it happen, take action, add value.
Love it. That's like the perfect action plan to any dream, love it. Literally, like, you take that blueprint and apply it to anything. You will have success if you pursue it long enough, you believe in it, and if it's what you truly are supposed to be doing on this planet. Sometimes God or the universe will be like, nope, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And you got to take some of those signs, but at the same time, like, you apply that action plan to anything that you're passionate about, anything that you truly like, that, the silent voice inside is like, hey, what if that happened? What if I could do that? You apply that to any one of those ideas, and you're pretty much guaranteed success, even if it's going to take 15 years, 20 years to get there. No one in life had it easy. No one in life that was successful didn't have failure. And I love that.
And take the patience to grow. Like, you can't immediately be that, high level person that you want to be from the get go. Like, you've got to grow, you've got to go through the steps and learn that you can adjust as you go along. There's going to be obstacles. Does it mean stop and give up? That means figure out a way to get around them, reroute, and, who knows, you might find a new adventure along the way. So
totally. You might meet your best friend. You might find through those bad experiences, you might find an even more powerful way to help the world, or to help yourself, or to become a better person, or an even cooler way to execute that dream. And if you're open to the infinite possibilities that life creates, and open to navigating those experiences with a inquisitive mind about how it could serve the purpose farther down the line, then all of a sudden you have power, or you have power within the situation, within any situation, whether like breaking your back or whatever it is. For me, it's like, I looked for what I told myself when it happened, I was going to become grateful for it. And now I am. And It's like, Yeah. What's one piece of encouragement or wisdom that you received that stuck with you, and who is it from?
Best piece of advice or wisdom that I've gotten. I think it goes back to the beginning of the interview and when I was talking about how I decided to pursue skiing. I think that's really stuck with me. It's from the artist Dave Pavel, and he passed away a while ago, but he's always stuck with me. He's the one that said, okay, if I had a wand and I could tap it on this table and you would be anybody you want to be, who would you be? And then, so go and create that person, be that person.
Yeah.
Work towards it. And then if, thinking of career wise, if you could tap a wand or if all of the jobs in the world paid the same amount of money, what would you do? And so just thinking of that on the scale of like, what are your values as a human and making sure that your actions are matching those values. So there's not that, dissonance happening. I think that advice has been helpful for me going forward. In general, having good intentions and being a kind person, like just be nice.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, or, if you're flat broke or if you're filthy rich, if you're a kind person, you will emit love and then you will receive that back. And that will hopefully make you happy or will help you in that pursuit of happiness, where all of these external factors of success or failure, whatever that may be, it's like, that's great. But on the inside, like your soul's experience, I think is what will be the best part of your life, hopefully. And so, just being nice. It goes a long ways and it makes everything better.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
Good answer.
Yeah.
But it's true.
So true. If you could have one significant impact in the world, what would it be?
I think, can I switch the answers? I want to encourage people to be kind to each other like that. Yeah. If you're going to be anything, just first be kind. Yeah. I think, that impact I think is important. I mean, like I said before, you can't change the world at large, but you can change your world. And so just being aware of that and aware of the way you influence other people. It's easy to get caught up in our own personal lives and I think if you can make yourself happy and feel love, and then hopefully you can translate that to the rest of your world. I would hope for that. Yeah. And I mean, the environment, of course, like that's what I want from here on out. A lot of my focus is going to be going towards like focusing on the environment, because that is super important. And it's one of the biggest issues in the world. It's like, if we're going to be alive and if I'm intelligent and capable, I should do something about that. And, I think the environment's a good way to direct that energy aside from, the internal like parts and experience of life. Yeah. So, if I can inspire other people to do the same, that would be ideal.
Definitely. Do you have a favorite travel tip or hack? You've done, we all do a lot of traveling. What's your favorite travel tip or travel hack?
I like to bring a water bottle, but I learned this the hard way. So simple, but to bring a water bottle. But when I was in the Bahamas, I was competing in the Miss Teen USA pageant, and we were told to drink a lot of water. And so I didn't know about water in foreign countries. I was 17 and hadn't traveled the world ever. So I chugged a lot of water. I drank like a gallon of water straight from the sink every day, and I got insanely sick. I was just puking and all that everywhere. And so that's a gory story.
It's real.
Yeah, I think doing your research, just the Google machine is amazing. Yeah. So Google, do some research on where you're going. I think packing a water bottle and a coffee mug. Sometimes I'll bring my own little cook stove so I can cook for myself, like a little packing stove. And then a tennis ball. Bring a tennis or a lacrosse ball. I put it, if I'm on an airplane, put it behind my back and massage. You can roll your feet out on it, so releases some tension. And traveling is it's kind of painful on the body sometimes, you're just sitting so much. So yeah, a little massage.
Totally. And where's the best place to find you?
You can Instagram, of course, the social media world. My Instagram is Amy Jane David, David. Yeah, so that's the easiest place. It has links to my websites or whatever I'm doing, whatever projects I'm working on. So would love to hear from everybody and share the stories.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the interview.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for spending so much time. Like, I am honored that the way that the conversation went, every bit about it. I'm super deeply grateful for the time that we spent, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, sounds good. See ya.
Later.
Hey, just one more thing before you go. I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you really enjoyed it. A couple things that I would ask that you do if you enjoyed today's episode. Number one, go follow us on Instagram at The Athletic Stance Podcast. Number two, if you don't mind leaving a review, rating it, and subscribing, it always helps. It helps spread the word. It helps me know what you guys are enjoying or not. And if you don't mind leaving a comment on Instagram, letting me know what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, I will always take into consideration. And feel free to send me a message with recommendations on who you'd like to hear from, what you'd like to hear us talk about. And as always, thank you so much for listening, for your time, and we'll see you next time at the Athletic Stance Podcast.